Okay, to the audience, I have to apologize for taking so long setting that up, but as I mentioned earlier, technology is great when it works, and we did have more than our share of problems getting the Skype to work to get our roundtable, our U.S. roundtable scheduled. You are listening to the United We Strike Radio Marathon for September 14th. 2013. I'm your producer, Gary Hendershot, broadcasting from my underground lab just south of Washington, D.C. But at this time, I'd like to bring in our roundtable participants. I have in the roundtable now Larkin, Texas, Phil Restino, Dinah Everett Snyder, Am Rosen, and Matt Navarro, and we may add a few more if I can. I'm going to do the best I can to line up a couple more, but right now we have a fairly august body ready to have our U.S. roundtable. So, folks, we were a little slow getting off the ground, but please, take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate all you do for UnitedWeStrike.com producing these shows. I have produced shows in the past, and I know how difficult it can be when you have technical challenges, and I applaud your efforts, and I thank Detlef from Switzerland and Alan from Ireland for being our producers as well. They do a wonderful job, and without them, we would not be UnitedWeStrike.com. Before we get started, I'd like everyone to know that today is Karen Tostado's 25th birthday. So I'd like everybody on the count of three to wish Karen a happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday,
Karen.
Hey, okay. So I thank everyone who are participants and hosts on the UnitedWeStrike.com broadcast.
Excuse me. Gary, are you aware, I don't know if it's anybody else, but I'm getting a continuous feedback loop, an echo.
I don't hear it.
Yeah, I spoke and then it comes back.
Okay, well, hang tight there, Am, okay?
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, so let's hope those technology issues that we continually experience here at UnitedWeStrike.com for unknown reasons. Perhaps Ed Snowden can enlighten us on that. Okay, so I thank all of you for participating. It's always amazing to me. And I see this every month, but I swear I mean it. I am so amazed at the intellect and the enlightenment of the hosts and the guests here on this show, from Mike Rivero to Suzanne Posel to Larkin, Texas, and Detlef and Alan, everyone here. We're so it's such a intelligent, enlightened host and audience. And guests that it's very humbling for a guy like me who never aspired to be a radio host, who never aspired to be a participant in a worldwide movement to unite the planet under a single banner of non-compliance and freedom. It is very humbling. So that we have you here, that we have these great minds assembled here tonight for this roundtable, I'd like to throw this out as our initial topic. We're coming out of the 12th anniversary of 911, and Detlef and Alan and I approached this issue a little earlier, but I wanted to get your all's takes on this because it is very significant. We're coming out of the 12th anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy that happened in the United States. Okay? And 12 years later, we live in a world that is unrecognizable from the one I was taught when I was a little kid, okay? So I'd like to focus on that, the post-9/11 world. I want to get your thoughts and opinions, your insights of what that means to you. And we'll leave that fairly open, but I'll start with this. I have a fairly unique perspective on the 911 issue. I was an activist on the internet since about 1992 with my website, Death to the New World Order. I exposed a lot of the New World Order's agenda. The Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Federal Reserve, the whole bit, okay? I exposed all that on the internet. Can we get somebody to mute there? Anyway, so when 911 occurred, at first I was at work I was working for Nike at the time, working on their system support desk, and I got a call from Nike Town, New York, and they were saying, we can't get connected to our network. And I'm like, oh boy. So I troubleshoot this thing as far as I can, and I can't figure it out either. Why can't I get this Nike Town store connected to our network? I couldn't figure it out. I turn it over to the next analyst, and I drive home. On the way home, I hear about this plane crash into the World Trade Center, and I'm like, okay, so maybe a Cessna crashed in there. We need to mute there. Plane crashed into the first tower, and I thought, okay, so maybe
I'm not sure.
It's an accident. Hey, Em, can you mute there?
Actually, that's Phil.
Oh, Phil. Okay. Anyway, so I'm watching this on the TV when I get home from work, and then the second plane hits the second tower, and then I knew it was a false flag event. I didn't know the words false flag at the time, but I had known about government conspiracies from the time I was a little child. I had studied UFOs since I was a little child, and I know about government conspiracy and cover-ups. So as I watched this entire horror take place in front of me, it pained me. It was very painful to watch this unfold, knowing my government was causing this. Okay, and what really hit me was they were showing debris, papers, and whatever floating down from the smoldering buildings, and then they got a close up, and the close up shot showed these people falling. They were so desperate. They were jumping off the 100th floor to their death. You know, they were so desperate, and they're falling like paper. And that got to me, and I just started bawling. So for me, knowing 911 was a fraud from the very beginning to now seeing how my tax dollar goes to funding the government buying weapons, and then they hire this guy named Al. His last name is Qaeda. And they give these weapons that I bought to pay for Al's paycheck, give it to him, and then say, go take over Libya. Kill that dude over there. Now, go over to Syria. Kill that dude over there. 1.5 million dead Iraqis later, and countless Pakistanis, Yemenis, and Afghanis later, this war of terrorism started by 911 is what is being used to enslave the American people and enslave the rest of the world. So for me, this 911 was a significant event in history to enslave the world. And that's why I think at UnitedWeStrike.com, our efforts are not worthless. What we're doing is to help bring awareness, understanding, education to the people of the planet. We are an international organization, and I really appreciate that. And I thank our audience for listening, and so that we can hopefully, as a species, through efforts like this, educate the public into resisting the New World Order by non-compliance, peaceful non-compliance, like Gandhi advocated, and hopefully turn this New World Order post 911 agenda around. Who wants to, Dinah, what's your thoughts on that?
I was actually going to jump in as soon as you finished and said, well, now that you've summed that all up very nicely, we can just go home. But then you asked me to speak. So someone actually sent me this the other day and asked me if I could focus a show on the Canary Chronicles around the following, and it's this. 2,976 people died on 9/11. 2.5 million died in wars justified by 9/11. 91.5 million people have died of hunger since 9/11. No comment. That was the banner that someone sent me and said, because I have a direct link, an email to Canary Chronicles, and they had sent me that as a precursor to asking me to build a show around it. And, this whole 9/11 thing and our current dilemma with Syria has created an enormous
Phil, do you
movement. Hello?
I'm sorry, I hung up on Am and then brought him back in to try and solve an echo problem. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dinah. Please continue.
That's fine. I think for me, this whole this perpetuating this perception of war on terror has done a huge disservice to the United States government. And the disservice has been that it has removed the veil between government and the people and allowed the people to see the wizard behind the curtain in ways that we could not have imagined. And I don't think that they, at the time, imagined what a backlash the provocative steps would invoke amongst the people. I still, of course, meet many people who believe that 9/11 was perpetrated by foreign nationals with box cutters. I know we all do. But by and large, many, many, many more people are willing to entertain the notion that they were fed errors of information, regardless of where they've come to rest their suspicions. Many, many more people are open now, today, to the idea that all was not what it should have been that day, and the information that was disseminated to the public in the days and weeks and months thereafter had various degrees and elements of lies and propaganda. So I, like you, Matt, looked at that day and looked at what was unfolding on the television and was really struck with horror. I grew up in South Africa during the apartheid era, and I went into the townships, which was a very illuminating experience, being a white woman going into the townships. And I never felt that I was in any danger there because I wasn't bringing any ill will with me. I was there to help and to provide service.
Hello? Hello?
Hey,
Yeah, Phil. You've just joined the round table, Phil.
Oh, hi. Sorry about the mix-up.
That's okay. Dinah's talking. This is the second time I've interrupted her with production issues. It's my fault.
Okay.
Hang tight there, Phil. Continue,
Hi.
Dinah, please.
Hi.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dinah.
Okay. And so I was also on the streets of widespread civilian unrest in downtown Johannesburg in the 70s and in the 80s. And I remember as a child when we had widespread violence on the streets and we had a form of lockdown in our communities, and we prepared for it. It was a part of everyday life. We didn't have these labels and stickers of, prepping and preppers and them and us. It was just a normal part of living in the real world. And so when we put the TV on that morning, I'd had a restless night. I was pregnant. And I put the TV on in time to witness this whole thing unfolding on national TV. And from the very get-go, I had this knot in my stomach that what they were reporting and what we were seeing was somehow very insidious. And certainly in the following weeks and months, as justifications were spewed out from the media and the politicians, and the more that they were talking about it on TV, and the more that they replayed the footage, this was something that really got me. That footage was played over and over again, and certain angles were played over and over again, and certain angles that were shown at the very beginning were completely lost.
Right.
And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that at that time, I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew absolutely that something was wrong.
Well, a lot of people had felt that. Hopefully, more people have awakened
Absolutely.
to that.
I do absolutely believe that. With everything that's unfolded since then, At first, all these justifications for wide sweeping reforms and executive orders started under Bush. All of these things that are like dominoes that have fallen into place, the executive orders that have been rewritten. You know, a lot of times the media has tried to pacify the people by saying, well, you know, these executive orders that have been signed by the current president, and the current at the time Bush, and then current was Obama, are really just updates on previously existing executive orders. No, they're not. Every time you go and you read the old wording of an executive order, and then you read the new wording of an executive order, the sweeping and implied additions are reinforcements of grander and bigger and more sweeping executive controls put into the hands of fewer and fewer people.
Well, you know, executive orders weren't part of the Constitution to begin with, so executive orders are controversial in themselves as dictates from a dictator.
They have become the standard against which Congress acts. They have become the standard against which the abominator stands and dictates policies and tells graduating students at universities how to think and what to feel, and orders them from the podium at a graduation ceremony at a public university that they must disregard all conspiracy theories and focus forward. Really?
Exactly. Okay. Hey, well, I was going to ask
Excuse
Gary.
me. I am adding Jeffrey Biddleman to the conference. He was unavailable via Skype, but the ringing you're hearing in the background is me trying to add him by telephone.
Okay. So we'll skip Gary for now. Let's go to Phil. Phil, okay, we're talking about the post-911 world. Hi, Jeff. Hold on there. We're talking to Phil right now. He's part of our roundtable. We'll get to you in a second. But our focus today is 911, the post-911 world. How has the world changed, in your opinion? What was your view of that day? Let's get your thoughts on because we just came out of the 12th anniversary of 911. Phil.
Yes, the world is changed for the worse, and we've given unabated power to these maniacs, these murderers that have just been slaughtering people around the world in the name of 9/11. And I think dealing with 9/11 is probably the most important thing we could be doing. And I have a problem with the left and the anti-war organizations, which I've been an insider of at least since 2005 when I became a chapter coordinator for Veterans for Peace. And I see the left and the anti-war people with enormous amount of blood on their hands. They profess publicly to be about stopping the wars, yet the sole reason given by the government to justify these wars has been the 9/11 fairy tale. And these people know it. They're gatekeepers, the leaders of the Code Pink and Veterans for Peace, World Can't Wait, AfterDowningStreet.org. They all know 9/11 is an inside job. And it doesn't even have to be that. All you have to know is that the government story doesn't add up. And you would think if there's any weakness whatsoever in the government's justification for these wars, which these people are supposedly there to stop, that they'd be jumping from, screaming from the rooftops. And I can tell you that the leadership of all these organizations have not only been mute on the subject, but they have suppressed any questioning from the rank and file. One example, Medea Benjamin of Code Pink, she's known, wide and far for her activism and standing up to the senators and all that. But she was on these 9/11 Truth conferences before Code Pink even started, when she was representing Global Exchange. If you go back and look at some of the rosters of these folks, of these conferences, you're going to see some very familiar names in the anti-war movement. And I think we've got to call these people out, continue to use other methods that are appropriate as far as waking up the general public. Architects and Engineers has a great campaign. But we've got to deal with 9/11, and we've got to bring these criminals, that Rumsfeld, Cheney, all of these criminals. Kevin Ryan's new book, Another 19, it really identifies them and bring them to justice. And it's going to take some more waking up, I think.
I think through efforts like ours here at UnitedWeStrike.com, we can help bring that about. And, I applaud your efforts, Phil, because you are like the term boots on the ground. You are an activist. You go out there, you participate, and you try to create change in our world, and that's the kind of activism we need in this world. So if you're listening to this, folks, you're listening to this broadcast, hopefully people like Larry can inspire you to get off the couch or go talk to your neighbor and say, hey, look, that chemtrail up there, that's not good stuff. In this post 9/11 world, it is upside down. It is Orwellian in its nature. I'm curious. You live, Gary, in the den of vipers. You live 12 miles south of D.C. You live just a few miles from Langley, Virginia, home of the CIA. And if I were in your position, I would feel so the vibe, the spiritual nature of this area, this geographical area, would really cramp how I feel. It would really affect my physical well-being, my spiritual well-being, to be in this den of evil. So how do you deal with the 911 world?
Well, I suspect I deal with it the same way everybody else does it. I mean, my proximity to D.C. aside, the one nice thing about living so close to the District of Columbia is that I have been able to participate for a long time in just about every protest that's come down. I mean, when you saw those crowds getting pepper gassed with Bob Hope, back in 1971, I was in the thick of that. It's been kind of a long and tortured road. The fact of the matter is, proximity to D.C. in some ways has been an advantage. It's allowed me to push my activism right into their face, right at the devil's gates. And every time I think we've made a little bit of progress, and I think maybe we might have won a battle, the enemy just seems to regroup and comes back at us harder and faster than they ever came at us before. And here recently, it seems to be like a snowball that's turning into an avalanche. Because it used to be they'd hit us a little bit at a time. They'd take just a little piece here, and then they'd back off for a little while, and a little piece here, and they back off a little while. I can tell you that over the last 10 years, things have changed so fast that it's absolutely frightening. Tremendous strides that we thought we had taken during the late 60s and the early 70s are all gone. They're all gone. It used to be only the black man had to ride in the back of the bus. Now everybody has to ride in the back of the bus, but the politicians and that 1% or 2% that own it all, including you, they get to ride in the choice seats in the front of the bus. So, we thought we were leveling the playing field by helping those who had been disadvantaged to come up. And what we have really done, what the gift of my generation to future generations, appears to be that we have pulled everyone down to the point where we are now all oppressed. That seems to be my take on the post 9/11 world.
I would agree with you. We're all
Agreed.
oppressed because of
Yeah.
it, right? Who else do we have on here? Let's see, Jeff, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Hey, Jeff. Okay, so from a We Are Change perspective, or from a Jeff perspective, you focus on that. I mean, Luke Radowski formed We Are Change out of the aftermath of 9/11, and he was labeled a truther, as if finding the truth is a bad thing. When was the truth a bad thing? No, besides that, what are your thoughts about the post 9/11 world?
Well, I felt that on 9/11, this nation was really scared to death, and the government really took advantage of that situation through the passing of the Patriot Act. Of course, now we have TSA at all of our airports and sporting events, and I feel that it's really ratcheted up the police state to a level that is unacceptable, and it's become so evident now that people are starting to see this in their everyday life, and they're beginning to question, what was the real point here? We gave up all of our freedoms supposedly to, catch the terrorists, but yet they still seem to hit us at will. Examples like the underwear bomber, or say the Boston bombing. So I'm seriously questioning. It seems like we give up our freedoms, yet we still don't have the security, and that's really kind of my feelings about the post 9/11 world. We're in this sort of period of change.
Well, we are. You sound like a younger guy, and from, I guess, the next generation's perspective, if we don't help educate them, people, if we don't help enlighten them to the fact that affected their future, they will not have a future. That one event is used to justify the extermination of millions of people. It is used to justify wars against people. I mean, look at what we're doing right now. We're saying because Assad in Syria is a madman and he gassed a whole lot of his own people with chemicals, we got to go kill more people in Syria, just to remind the people in Syria it is wrong to kill people in Syria with chemicals. How crazy is that? Am Rosen, what is your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to drag Am in kicking and screaming. We had an echo issue on his end.
Okay, so Larkin, Texas.
I'm going to try him right now, so he'll be available just momentarily.
Okay, Larkin, Texas. You live in Texas, home of the Alamo. You have this real rebellious spirit. Texas was a republic at one time. How do you, from a Texan's perspective, view 9/11?
Well, just as an aside, let me point you to rents.com, and there's an interesting artist conception as well as a bit of a history lesson from David Dees, and it's entitled, Who Did 9/11? But I have to say that I come from a bit of a different perspective than what most people might surmise. I was mostly apolitical for most of my life. I did live for a time on the left coast. I lived in San Francisco, Long Beach, Portland, and Seattle. I was a military brat growing up. I was living in Japan when JFK was assassinated, and I remember the astonishment that I experienced when I moved to the Deep South in 1966. But my political awakening didn't occur until I discovered this word communitarianism. And I didn't think that this word was particularly important until I discovered that it was the basis for what we call communitarian law. Communitarian law in the European Union is known as community and or communitarian law. This is the international law. This is the integration of that body of law, which was part and parcel of socialist and communist countries, that was brought into rather a merger with the so-called capitalist countries, most of them the first world countries. And so I had to become familiar with the language, but it took a whole lot of research. Since the first time I got on the internet, I was a late adapter in 2004. It took a whole lot of research to realize how it is that we are being played primarily through this thing called the Hegelian dialectic, but also through rampant science fraud, the conflation of deductive logic and inductive logic. And so regarding, if you have a pointed question about 9/11, I'd love to address it. But in my estimation, it was part of a long-term plan. I think primarily it was, there were many reasons for 9/11. And I think we pretty much have narrowed the perpetrators down. But it has very much to do with Bretton Woods, the U.S. dollar. We're talking about massive financial fraud, as well as there were many people involved in the financial fraud who had to protect their interest. And so,
Right.
when I look at 9/11, I'm very careful not to attach a label to myself or to adopt the stance of those on the left or those on the right, because what I have learned about communitarianism and communitarian law, it is designed to bring all of us to a point of not only compliance to the agenda, but we have to combine that word compliance with those other words, complacence and complicity. Those are the three operative words. So when we say at United We Strike, don't buy, don't comply, ask why, I'm always reminded that it's like a triumvirate here. There's three operative words. Are you compliant? Are you merely complacent? Means, are you a go along to get along type? Do you simply stick your head in the sand like an ostrich? And or are you complicit? And in a socialist system, whether we describe it as fascist or communist, soft socialist, a democracy, what have you, we have to understand that the principal unit of socialist organization is the modern corporation. And in such a scenario, what you have is you have people who are compartmentalized by their access to information, and they are rather on a need-to-know basis. Many people, they go to their jobs, they happily go about their business as small business people, entrepreneurs, and everybody has this idea of success, which was bred into us in America's public school system and in our colleges and universities. Communitarian is a very important word for those reasons. And so what I'm concerned about is how it is that we are engaged ourselves in this fight in such a manner that we can rid our oppressors of the dialectical conflict by which they rule us in a divide and conquer strategy. So forgive the long answer.
It's Saturday afternoon in the United States, and it's college football day. And I guarantee you, 90% of the people in this country right now are sitting in front of their TVs watching their favorite school battle it out against their rival schools on TV. Those are the people we have to reach in this post 9/11 world. That is your obligation as our audience and as our host to be able to talk to your friends, families, and neighbors about what's really going on to wake them up to the realities of 911 and how it is used to manipulate the world that they live in. We have to alert them to the fact that they live in the fantasy, and that's why they appear to be zombies to us who are awake. Ambrose, we have you now. Post 9/11, your thoughts.
Indeed you do. Well, let me point out, everything that comes into existence, be it a person or a system, exists in relation to the possibility that it may cease to exist, go out of existence. It's point counterpoint or thesis antithesis. Every system is set up to be rebelled against. And the harder you rebel against it, the more the system is continued. We're looking for synthesis. Now, what was that line? Walking my mind through an easy time, my back turned towards the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around. Interesting lyric, 911, wake-up call. What were we waking up to? Gee, I'm not as safe and secure as I thought I was. Well, how safe and secure did you think you were? What was your perspective? There has to be host receptivity before any parasite can take effect. That can be a parasite of fear, just the emotional interplay of what that suggests to a person. I would say that most people are not disciplined, they're not trained. They can think of ideas and say, yes, that sounds terrible, we shouldn't be like that, or we should be like this. But translating them functionally from the idea level into pragmatic social interaction, that's a whole different space. In the 60s, there was an amazing congruence of things that happened between birth control, first generation raised on television, social access, a bohemian lifestyle hitting the mainstream. It was a time of discovery, and youth fueled it because youth doesn't need as much. The body doesn't ache. It's more resilient. You can do with less and have a good time. And what everybody wanted was to have a good time, to expand their awareness, expand their potential. But is this where you're going to spend your money? Marketplace comes in and says, okay, change in lifestyle. How do we regulate this so we can tap into the economic flow that this kind of interest produces? Now, we come up and we find that the people who are controlling the buttons, so to speak, pushing things around, they're people. And as has been pointed out, they're isolated and cut off. They're not integrated. Earlier today, I said it's the feelings that are the big problem. You could call them the missing link in human evolution, psychologically. Most people don't understand why they respond the way they do, why they feel the way they do. But the thing is that feelings only have one criteria for judgment. That's for you, me, and everybody on this planet. That is, either I get what I was patterned, conditioned, and programmed to feel I should want, and if I get it, it produces pleasure, I approach it and feel satisfied, or I don't get what I was patterned, conditioned, and or programmed to feel I should want. And if I don't, it produces pain, avoidance, and guilt. Now, these are irrational processes. They form the emotional patterns which everybody's stuck in. As long as they're there, no matter how brilliant our thoughts, how scientifically validated, we still keep falling back into this pit. But what's happened is we're running out of room. We've been sweeping the dirt under the rug for so long, there's no more room under the rug. It's starting to come back out and choke us. We're reaching critical mass on the environment, the ecology, and a lot of other things. So I would say that people became aware. The wake-up call they got wasn't that there was an enemy out there. War, it's been there since humanity emerged, because war is essentially trying to force your will over and against another person's will. But most of us are at war inside of ourselves. We're trying to force what we think we should be and how we should be, or what we should avoid, or what we should obtain, over the feelings that say maybe we're not good enough, or smart enough, or adequate enough. And this is what has to be resolved before we can take over the social machinery and make it work to all of our advantages.
Well, I agree with you. we have to take that personal responsibility. Okay, so we've gone around the table. We've got your thoughts. We've got a couple minutes left. Let's go back around the table for closing comments, to make sure that all of you leave our audience with some tidbit that is valuable to them. And I thank all of you for participating in the UnitedWeStrike.com effort. It is a global effort. It is an effort out of love. We do this voluntarily. We make no money from this. We volunteer our time to share with you information, thoughts that will help you survive and make better decisions. She had her daughter on earlier today, and I thought, boy, that is one sharp cookie. Diana, your closing thoughts.
Author Bruce Caldwell said, withholding information is the essence of tyranny. Controlling the flow of information is the tool of the dictatorship. So earlier you made the statement, when is truth a bad thing? Well, really, we should all be cognizant of the fact that being labeled a truther should be a distinction that we strive for. It shouldn't be a negative label. We should all want truth. This is the premise upon which we raise our children. This is the premise upon which an ethical and moral society is based. Certainly the way I raise my children.
Well, it shows, and I appreciate you raising the next generation to those standards. It gives me hope. Thank you very much for participating this week.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary, your closing thoughts. Wait. No, let's go back around the table. Who else do we have on here? Glenn, you still there? Jeff.
Yes, Jeff, I'm here.
Sorry. Okay, your closing thoughts. How do we get to your website? How do we get to your information? What do you want to leave our audience with this month for United We Strike?
Sure. The website is www.meetup.org/wearechange-Orlando. And what I want to leave everyone with is the encouragement to get out there and get active. The time is now. We have to get out there and get the truth out to the people. Just look at the situation that you're in. You still have the ability to get out there and make a difference, whereas in the future you might not. So it's better to go out there right now, folks, and, not be perfect, make a mistake, as opposed to sitting around and doing nothing. And I'm encouraging everybody to get over the fear. I know it's difficult. Public speaking, it's not easy, but we have got to do it. Nobody else is going to do it for us. If you're just counting on somebody else to go out there and do this, this just isn't going to happen. It comes down to us. And that's really what I want to leave the audience with.
Thank you very much. Larry Pinckney says it this way: each one, reach one, each one, teach one. Phil, you're Larry's co-host, your closing thoughts and your website.
Okay. Thank you, Matt, and thanks for including us again this month. My closing thoughts are, I think, here's one thing, and Jeff mentioned it when he was speaking earlier about We Are Change. Everyone can do something, nobody can do everything, but everyone can do something. Just do something. And one of the things Larry and I like to stress on our own program is that we've got to come together. We've got to put the people, that is, respective differences aside and come together on these important issues. We're still artificially divided between left and right, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. There's too much at stake here. We're going down, man. There's a YouTube. It's called Larry Pinckney, a prison experience. And in that 17-minute piece, Larry explains how, as a Black Panther in the California state prisons, one of the white Aryan brothers came to him for defense in Warden's court. And, these guys, the blacks were killing the whites were killing the blacks, and Larry defended this guy, and the killing stopped. And that didn't mean the black groups had to be friends with the Aryan brothers, or they're going to, no. But they came together on a common benefit, something that the killing had to stop. And Larry saw that as a way of stopping the killing. That doesn't mean they became best friends and gave up their beliefs, And I think that's what we need to do as people. So that's what I want to leave this month.
Thank you, Phil. That's a beautiful story. Yeah, it's a beautiful story because Larry is one to tell you he doesn't care what color you are. We have to get past our differences. And that's what we do here at UnitedWeStrike.com. We have an international set of hosts. We have people from around the world who are hosts. We have people from around the world who are listeners, okay? We may have our little differences, but let's get past the balkanization that the New World Order tries to put in our place, tries to separate us based on ethnic lines, religious lines, political lines, genetic lines, whatever, so that we can fight for our freedoms on a common level. We have to get past our differences. Larkin, Texas, your closing thoughts, please.
Well, I would only caution about language and how it is actually a technology that has captured and controlled our minds and our culture. And this is perhaps why the divide remains. Now, as a person who's lived most of his young life and adult life thinking that I was perhaps a progressive and a liberal, they both sounded very cool. I thought I was open-minded. And progress, yeah, I'm all for progress. I can tell you that these words are tricky. They're quite tricky. But at the end of the day, what we have to do is we have to teach about well-being. We have to teach about independence, what it means. And because this is the future that we face, we will no longer be independent. No one will be independent if these people have their way, because it's quite a concerted effort by one hell of a lot of people to deprive us of our free will. And this is the name of the game. I would advise people to look into this word well-being. Describe what it is to you, because only you matter in terms of how you define this word. And then look at this word economy. Forget about the blather you hear about on television or you learned in school about what economy is. Look the word up. Realize that even the definition for the word capital has changed. It has changed. And understand how words are used to keep us divided. And so I would only ask that you look into this word communitarianism, realize that it is the darling of academia and of think tanks and policy analysts for a reason. The last 3 or 4 presidents we've had all describe themselves as communitarians, so we must become familiar with this word. And you can find my research notes at a website entitled Just an American. You can find it at larkintexas.blogspot.com. There you have it.
Bam.
I'm not sure who we just dropped, but I think we just dropped somebody off the call. How much you want to bet it was Matt Navarro?
Oh, no.
And here I was
that
waiting.
Would be a tragedy.
Hey, I've but Dinah, one thing I did want to catch up on, and I believe we have lost Matt from the call. Hopefully, we'll reconnect with him. So I guess I'll go ahead and take the MC role. Dinah, you were not given an opportunity to do your blatant self-promotion. We were remiss please, so that anybody out there who's heard what you have to say, if they might like to find out a little bit more about what you're involved with, please make sure that people know what your website is and how they might be able to find out, get another little taste of Dinah.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, for anyone who's interested, you can catch me on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock on my own site, which is called The Canary Chronicles. It's hosted on ucy.tv. That's Canary Chronicles. You can reach me by email at canarychronicles@outlook.com with any comments or thoughts that you have. I check that email daily. You can also catch me on Monday afternoons from 2 to 3 on Wide Awake News. I host an hour over there along with Charlie McGrath, the owner of Wide Awake News. And anyone who's interested in looking at my veteran study, you can find that at DinahEverettSnyder.wordpress.com. I did a veteran study. I've subsequently done 2 more, and the results are quite astounding. Thank you, Gary.
All righty. And Am Rosen, I don't think we got to hear your summary. Would you like to give us a little taste of Am Rosen? And also, please do not forget that all-important self-promotion. We have to, make sure that people know where they can find out more about what we're doing.
Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for allowing me to share with you. I wish we were all sitting down at a big table, really having a bite to eat and a bit of inter-exchange. I would point out that all fear, however overwhelming or however mildly annoying, is a product of defended misunderstanding. And when you realize that regardless of what you think or how much smarter you may be than someone else or have better perspective, you don't really understand and you're defending it, the fear starts to subside. Tools of consciousness, language, as Mark pointed out, is certainly a tool. The question is, are we going to use these tools, or are we going to be run ragged by the tools? When our tools of consciousness, which are our vehicles for exchanging in this particular world, start to handle us, so to speak, we become the slave of the slave. But it doesn't have to be that way. As I said, the beast needs a good master. These various levels of consciousness, we're running ourselves ragged. We're susceptible to anybody that wants to manipulate them. And I want to tell you, not as an intellectual ideal, but as a functional practicality, this can be ended fairly easily. What does that mean? It means returning access of the energy and of your awareness to you, to use as you see fit, or not to use, to be aware, to calm the body. Then there's the other side. What is going to give you pleasure? Pleasure makes you open up, lets you become more expansive. You're drawn towards it. Pain shuts you down. It's a block full of energy. How can we enhance the performance capabilities? Not like, wow myself up on some sort of amphetamine or over-caffeinate and go, but then burn my cells out and get a negative blowback. How do we safely and effectively upgrade the quality of our vitality, thereby enhancing our mental processes, freeing us to each come into the particulars of our disposition, our own unique sense of self. Much more to say about this, and as I said, we're going to be talking a lot about this in the next broadcast, State of Mind, Quality of Life. That'll be on October 4th. You can find an archive of those shows on my website, which is www.lifegame.com. We'll also be putting up and doing another show with Dean called Uncommon Awareness. It's a roundtable discussion where we have guests on and get into particular topics. But I will take a moment on this for this blatant self-promotion. On my website, among other things, you'll find under Books and Recordings some sample excerpts from my newest book and the one before it, Cruising the Epiphany Highway. I'm going to recommend it if you want to go on a ride. The first part of the book, it's in 4 parts, Volume 2. First part is how does consciousness work? How does it develop? How does it tie into our health? Second part is a love song to the spirit, euphoria without side effects. Third part is kind of takes you through the transformational alchemy of the erotic libido. And the fourth part, reality, making believe that you're not making believe, Well, that'll give you some things to think about. I'd love to hear from you. Please email me. I love questions. And again, thank all of you for allowing me to share with you.
Thank you, Ambrose. And, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Okay, Gary Hendershot, your closing thoughts. You're part of this UnitedWeStrike.com family. What do you want to leave our audience with for this month?
Well, and as far as the blatant self-promotion goes, on the internet, I am widely known as Smart Scarecrow. And if you mosey on over to smartscarecrow.com, you'll find that I publish at least one, most of the time two, audio video productions every week. Most of my material is in the genre of alternative energy. And as my parting remark, as a segue into that, I'd like to, provide a little story that I ran into on one of the forums where the alternative energy nerds get together and compare their latest projects, and this one's talking about, their whiz-bang little gizmo, and the other one's talking about their whiz-bang little gizmo. Well, of course, because it was 9/11, a rather heated discussion came up about the characteristics of 9/11. And what I found in this forum of people, none of these guys are working on the same projects, and they can all look at each other's projects and nod their heads and say, "Ooh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you're doing something pretty neat." But when it came to 9/11, what I found was that everybody seemed to gravitate to their little camp. And you had this little camp over here that said, "Oh, no. Bunch of Arab guys with box cutters took control of these airplanes and smashed them into buildings, and that's what caused the whole thing. Oh, yeah. And that guy with a cell phone and a laptop, who was on dialysis, living in a cave in Afghanistan, he organized the whole darn thing." And you had this other group, wildly opposed, saying, "Oh, no. It was aliens with space-based weapons who, zapped them with a particle beam, and that's what knocked down those buildings." And, of course, you had every argument in between. And nobody could come together on the obvious fact that the line we were fed by those who we paid to find out what was going on was a bag of donuts. Okay, it was frustrating to me that this group of people who could normally discuss very diverse opinions on so many topics were so differentiated on their little piece of 9/11. They could not acknowledge the fact that what they were all saying was that the corporate line was BS. They could not agree to disagree on the particulars. That is the core of how we are being divided, and how, if we don't stop being divided, we will be conquered. Now, do I agree with every host who presents on United We Strike? Hell no. Do I expect them to agree with every opinion that I might express? Hell no. But one thing we can agree on is that this world that we're about to hand off to our children and our grandchildren is not what we thought it was. Hopefully, we would leave it to them in better condition than we found it. And instead, it looks like we're going to leave them a world in much worse condition than what we found it. What brings me to United We Strike is that the enemies of my enemy is my ally. And just like back in the late 1960s and 1970s, I marched with communists. I marched with Black Panthers. I marched with anybody. They were all my allies because we had this unifying issue, this horrible war where we were killing and maiming yellow people at that time. The yellow people seemed to be the target. We hadn't gotten on to brown people yet. But that's okay. At the time, yellow people were held up in front of us as the horrible enemy, and we had to go blow them up. We had to make bloody bits out of them because, it was, an orders from God or something. Who knows? But we saw this thing. We said, this is horrible. And it unified so many of us to get together. Now, these were not people that I'd go out and have a beer with. These were not people I would invite over the house for a cookout. But, we were brought together by that one issue. Well, 9/11 could be that issue for the people today. It could be the issue that brings us together instead of pulling us apart. And, I would encourage people to put aside your differences. Put aside your differences. The world is in trouble. And unless we get off our ass and do something about it, we're not going to leave the world to our children and grandchildren that we thought we were going to leave them. And those are my parting remarks.
I agree with you, Gary. We have to unite. Unity is what we're all about here at UnitedWeStrike.com. Therefore, the word united. And I thank all of you for participating this month in this marathon. It is always a pleasure to hear all of your thoughts. Thought-provoking indeed. I hope our audience appreciates that and is inspired to help teach their family members, their neighbors, their friends, their colleagues, the things that they hear here on UnitedWeStrike.com. Unity is the key. We as a species need to resist the New World Order by not complying with it at all. In every aspect of your life, think about how you can resist. Every day, just do one thing against the New World Order. That's what I do. If it's just forwarding an email or reading an article on the internet or making a phone call to a friend and saying, hey, did you see this? Pointing it out to the guy on the street that says, look, up there, that's a chemtrail. Do you know what that is? Just one little thing you can do every day to resist the New World Order. That'll help. The hosts that we have on this program are so amazing. The information that is shared with you is vast. So take that with you and tune in next month because we will again have another interesting conversation with all of our hosts. I'd like to thank our producers, Detlef, Alan, and Gary, Michael Rivera for spending some time with us today, Larry Pinkney, Phil, everyone. Until next month, folks, say it all with me.
Wait.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday
Oh,
to me.
Karen, how you doing?
Well, I'm working on a birthday buzz here, and I was feeling so proud and happy and honored that the marathons are continuing, and I love all of you, and I just wanted to say thank you, and that I wanted also to weigh in and say that as of 2013, when we talk about stepping into a higher consciousness, when we talk about really being able to enable a better world, I believe that the critical step that we are missing, the crucial step, is the heart-centered step, where if the people being murdered were in our neighborhood, if it happened in the next block, we would understand the emergency of stopping any more of this. We would understand the pain, but we don't, and we choose to think that we can enable our lives to be full and rich. And on my 61st birthday, what I've realized is, wow, my life actually is pretty wonderful. And I've been trying to help save the world, and for going on now 4 years of the marathon, beginning in 2009 with Tax Holiday, 2009.net. And Matt, I so want to thank you for being one of the original co-founders and encouraging me predicting that I would be on the radio with my own program when I had no idea that I was ever even in the market. I just knew that I needed to do something to stop this. And I've realized now that my heart has always told me murder is immoral, it is wrong, and ignoring it is wrong. And I believe when enough of us step into that heart-centered thinking of, yes, if it were my mother, my father, sister, brother, cousin, uncle, you know, how would I feel? And for me, they are my brothers and sisters and cousins and fathers and mothers. And when we finally really grasp that, then I think that the idea behind United We Strike will spark a flame within our hearts, because that is truly what should prevail. Not the 30 pieces of silver, but the heart that knows crucifixion of truth is wrong. And being a truther is an honor. And I just wanted to say thank you. I am unable to have a birthday buzz because it is my birthday, so forgive my rambling, but hear my heart and thank you very much. And when I say power to the people through peaceful unity, I mean it. And actually, then I want to do one other thing. Since it is my birthday, I want to share that when I've been looking for things to unite us, water has been crucial. Water has memory. Water can be affected by our consciousness. Water is in each and every one of us. And if our water is holier, if we can bless our water, if we can become temples of our own holy water, possibly, then we can make changes from within. And as is within, so without. And if we are healthier, we'll make better decisions. And so as I've been traveling along the Umpqua, this is my prayer to the water. And when I say I am your daughter, if the prayer resonates and you are a male, then if you think I love your daughter, when a man truly loves a woman, when we have both of those, there's protection, there's honor, there's integrity. And so this is my prayer to the water, and I'm sharing it on my birthday just because I have a birthday buzz, and you guys can't kick me off.
Go ahead, Karen.
Father, you are present everywhere. Mother Earth, you crown me to your majesty and miracles. Holy water, I am your daughter. Thank you for the gifts you've given me. Thank you for the water which is life and holds her memory. Holy water, I am your daughter. Thank you for returning to the essence of your purity.
Wow, that's a beautiful prayer. Thank you, Karen.
Happy birthday, Karen.
You know, we missed your voice. We missed your voice here on UnitedWeStrike.com, so it's nice to have you here with us tonight on your birthday. And, you know, we were talking to Michael Rivera earlier about how your phone call to him, and you were talking about boycotts and everything, started the Tax-Free 15 movement, and which grew into UnitedWeStrike.com. You know, it's been a long journey.
Yeah, and actually the movement was started before the phone call. And Max Egan was instrumental in helping me set this up. But I think really it should be about a heart-centered movement. And I think that when we as individuals really understand that every night we go to sleep with blood money, you know, we are steeped in it. They're stealing our money to pay for these atrocities. And I think when enough of us get that, you know, when we really get that, we'll stop. And when we do stop, if we stop at the same time, we will have such power we can turn things around. We can become our own tidal wave. And thank you for participating. Thank you. And Matt, also, I can't promise that I will be able to anymore be here all day to participate, but I'll have to schedule my own program next month on the United We Strike marathons, probably early in the morning in that European hour.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah, sure. Love to have you back. It's always good to hear your voice. So as we close tonight, folks, it's been a long day. We've had lots of great conversation. Again, it is an honor to listen to all of you throughout the day. It's like an all-day concert for me, going to see Ozzy Osbourne and, say, Motley Crue and AC/DC all at the same time, right? It is kind of like that for me. We appreciate your all's participation. We really appreciate our audience. We'd like to thank you for listening and staying with us today. Until next month, folks, you all want to say it with me, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Death.
Yes.
Order.
World order.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Happy church. Good night.
Thank you, Gary.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Gary. Good night.